and get started. I am, if you cannot hear me, I'm going to type in the chat box just to make sure that everybody can hear. We're going to have a brief reflection moment on the implementation of a civil conversation that you conducted in your class, hopefully, since we met in September. You still have a little bit of time to complete this and post on Canvas, so no worries if you're feeling like you're behind. You still have a little bit of time, and hopefully tonight, even if you can't share about your implementation, you'll leave here with some lessons learned from the teachers who have implemented. So I feel like everyone will walk away with something. We have our pictures here in case you have completely September. You have Lindsay and I with the high school cohort, and then Laura and I are working with the middle school cohort. Again, if you're not speaking, please try to mute yourself and take the time to introduce yourself in the chat area. All right, so let's talk about our agenda for the night. We are going to hear mainly from you guys. This is not meant to be me and Lindsay and Laura speaking to you, but rather you guys sharing out your reflections from your experiences with a civil conversation. We're also going to review how to navigate Canvas. There has been a little bit of confusion, and even some of you have probably lost the email that came from Canvas asking you to join the course. Maybe you thought it was some junk mail, but if you've not accessed the Canvas course yet, you definitely need to reach out to me so that I can help you get logged on. And Laura's going to walk you through the steps so that you know where you are supposed to be posting all of your reflections. We'll also have a time of open discussion around a couple of questions to kind of gauge where you are in the process in terms of any challenges or major successes. Canvas is also a place where you can share these challenges and successes as well as any materials that you've created. I know that I just saw a civil conversation conducted yesterday in which the teacher made awesome adjustments to the civil conversation guide in her English class so that it focused a lot more on summarizing and things like that. So please share those things in reflection time. We'll also be having a time to brainstorm any issues that you might be having and try to provide you with some solutions along the way. And then we'll talk briefly about what's coming up in the next few months as we enter our next teaching cycle focused around role plays and simulations. All right, Laura, so she'll take you through navigating Canvas, as many of you may be struggling a little bit.
All right, guys, can you hear me? I'm assuming you can. I'm going to keep going with this. You see if I pull up the chat. Somebody just give me a yes, we can hear. Okay, good, good. So navigating Canvas is actually pretty easy. You can go straight from the email, actually, that Jamie has sent out multiple times. But you're going to make sure that username has NC-Gil at the start of it. So if your name is Sam Smith, it would be NC Gil Sam Smith. So you know, we can all put our names in there. Make sure you're posting in the group for North Carolina only, and this would include teachers in both the Iredell and Guilford, I think is what that ISS is standing there for, Jamie, if I'm not mistaken. And let's go through some of the screenshots. So this is probably the most helpful thing here. So when you get logged in, this is what your home page is going to look like. And you can look, let me see if I can minimize this. There, that should help a little bit. So this is exactly what your screen will look like. You'll see we also have North Carolina over here under course groups. Or you can also click over here for your groups and it'll automatically lead you over to North Carolina. I've accessed it both ways. And then when you pop in there, it's going to go straight to discussions. Many of you guys are probably comfortable with Canvas. You've used it with your students, or you may have experienced it through like faculty PD. When you click into your discussions, it pops right up for you. You'll see the October discussion, the welcome, introduce yourself, October reading and discussion 1, and then October discussion 2. When you go into post, you'll see here that we've got the questions that are put there for you guys to kind of go in and answer, just as a way to guide you through and kind of give some direction to our discussions that we're having. When you click to reply, it will come up with a box right underneath, and that's where you're going to put in your response. Make sure that you scroll down, especially if you don't have the full screen up, where you'll see the post reply, because you don't want to put it in here. I know a lot of people will come in and put it under like search entries or authors just because it's the first blank spot you see. Make sure you click reply. This box will pop up. That's where you post, and then click post reply. You can go through and read other people's comments, which is pretty awesome. It allows us to have those conversations. You can click that you like something. If you want to respond and say, you know, I really liked this part of it, or I had a similar experience, or I was frustrated at this point and I tried this. It's a great way for us to begin reflection and open dialogue with one another. If you would like to receive notifications when people post or comment on your post, it's going to be here under your account. I will warn you when that happens. If people go in and say, like, after this meeting and people are very active, it will continuously pop up. But you'll also get a daily email that says, here's your recent activity in Canvas, which is kind of a nice way too to keep us on our toes in terms of remembering to go in and making sure that we're participating in the conversation. But if you go here for your notifications, discussions, you can click those on and off. You can also click that you don't want to be sent anything. And Jamie, have I missed anything? Go back, sorry. Uh-oh, it looks like Jamie got kicked out. I know she was having some issues in terms of pulling up the PowerPoint. Okay. Well, we can keep moving forward, and Jamie, when you get in, you just pop in and start talking with us. So if you guys have questions about how to get into Canvas, I know Lindsay is working the chat group right now. I'm assuming that most of us are somewhat comfortable with this, or we've had some experience. If not, I will tell you, even if you're brand new to it, if you follow the steps in the email that Jamie sent and open up that PDF, it is absolutely super, super, super simple. And it's a great way for us to stay connected. We can move right into the reflections section so that we are not wasting anyone's time, and everybody can stay on schedule. So one of the questions that we want to ask.
Can anyone hear me?
Oh, yes.
Hello? Yes, I'm desperately having trouble getting into Canvas. I have my PC open. I'm talking to you on the phone because I couldn't even get to the Zoom meeting on my PC. So I had to do it through by way of the phone number.
Okay, so are you having Zoom issues or Canvas issues? Because those are two separate things.
Yeah, well, I'm also having Canvas issues because I tried to get into Canvas as well, and I was able to register and get in, but when I got in, I couldn't see courses. It looked very generic and very blank, and I couldn't.
Did you not see this? See this right here? Is this the screen that you saw?
I can't see anything.
Oh, you can't see it. I'm sorry. Dang it. Sorry. That would have worked if you could see it.
Yeah, I'm talking to you from my iPhone. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. You said you called in. So we're probably going to have to, maybe if we could talk maybe tomorrow via phone or email. Are you in Iredell or in Guilford?
I'm Guilford County.
Okay. So
Can anybody hear me now?
yes, we can hear you, Jamie.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So can you just shoot me an email tomorrow and I can help you troubleshoot through all of those Canvas issues?
Okay, because I caught myself printing out everything you sent. I have one that says instructions for accessing North Carolina discussion groups on Canvas. Is that the one I was supposed to use to get into Canvas?
Well, that will help you once you get in, but you're into the course, but it sounds like you're having some troubles getting to the course first. So if we can just talk about if we can just chat tomorrow via email or even by the phone, I'll help you get through all of that.
All right.
Okay.
Because I did my civil discussion and I was trying to type everything and post it while it was fresh in my mind. I took a few notes, but because I did my civil discussion on the 11/29.
Okay.
And I've been desperately trying to post it. Yeah. Okay. But go ahead. I don't want to hold it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Sorry for my technical difficulty, guys. Life. Anyways, we want to hear about your experiences with conducting a civil conversation, even if you've not had a chance to post in Canvas yet. This is your chance to share. So first we want to hear about what worked really well with your students. So please share openly.
Okay, I can talk?
Yes, please.
Okay, what worked really well was doing the legwork. They enjoyed the piece that I selected. So I chose the text and did the graphic organizer with it. We annotated the text. We covered the legwork part in depth. They enjoyed the topic, and with ease they were able to manipulate the text and transfer everything over to the civil discussion graphic organizer. So they enjoyed that part. So you want to hear what went well. The other thing that went well, there were students that really worked diligently in the actual discussion part to keep the discussion going. But because our numbers were so small, it did kind of fizzled out. I tried to, so those are the things that went well.
Awesome. Anybody else? And if you're having trouble with using a microphone, please feel free to share in the chat area.
I didn't hear the other person talking. Did anyone talk?
Yes, someone was talking.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes, I can hear them.
So for me, what worked really well it was better than past discussions that I've done, because normally when I have a discussion, I'll just have like a main question and we discuss it from there. And so having the text has really helped me for my students who maybe don't have as much background knowledge in whatever topic that we're talking about. So I've really appreciated having those resources to see the pros and cons of each issue that we discuss, and, really being able to have textual evidence for those conversations.
Can anyone share what topic they chose for their civil conversation? Because I think that is one of the most important things involved in a civil conversation is topic selection.
Yeah.
I chose. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
we can hear you.
chose,
Yep.
I chose Facebook. Is the problem Facebook or you? Was the topic or the title of the text. Is Facebook the problem, or are people the problem?
I talked about when the issue of the national anthem and whether or not the NFL should kneel during that. We discussed that, as well as the article that we discussed at our first meeting.
Awesome. I'm sure the students really got into that topic.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no doubt. Lots of good sources to use too right now for that.
So I had 2 civil conversations. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Classes, and one class did should we teach religion in schools, which was a News ELA article, and it offered like context of why we should teach religions in schools for historical context versus like freedom of religion, and the students really enjoyed that, and it got into a further discussion of Islamophobia and radicalism, and so it was very interesting to see how that came to fruition. And the second one was should textbooks have trigger warnings when it comes to sexually explicit or kind of harder topics in textbooks for college classrooms. And so I did that with a older group of students that were majority seniors and juniors, and they really enjoyed that because it offered up a question of when do we cross into people's personal realms versus their academic. So I think those worked out really well for the students.
Has anyone been able to use the protocol more than once with their class and kind of can reflect on how those two experiences differed?
I did it probably 4 times early on in the semester, and each time it got better because the expectations were more clear and my students knew what to expect. So I would just say, the more you do it, I think the better it gets.
Right. Was there anything that you changed in terms of the structure you provided? You said the expectations became more clear, probably with more practice, but any changes that you made?
I think I was more clear the second time about how to handle when the conversation starts fizzling out, and they didn't have discussion questions necessarily prepared, how to kind of, ask some, questions of other peers to get more feedback, so that the conversation didn't just die.
Awesome. Yeah, I think having them produce as many questions as possible will help the conversations not end so quickly. So, on the guide, there's a place where they need to put at least 2 questions. If you could adapt that, if you're seeing conversations die a little too soon, to having even more questions. Or I have seen teachers say, using the little sentence starters that we gave you guys, say that you must use at least 5 of these. And that means that they're probably going to speak at least 5 times, if not more than that, so that they can not use a sentence starter. So that might help with conversations, really being fleshed out. Anybody want to share their struggles so that maybe the group can help troubleshoot some of those challenges that you might have faced?
Yes, I hope someone can help me. So we're a transitional school. We're a alternative setting, and some of the problems were, getting everybody to do the legwork, of course, read the text, fill out the graphic organizers, create the questions, getting everybody to do that because of attendance. And so once we got over that hurdle, and I got everybody to become, of course, familiar with the text and all that entails, then it was the matter of conducting the actual discussion. And every time we tried to proceed with that, ran into other attendance issues. Finally, I just decided to go with those that had done both, that were present and had done the legwork. And I ended up, sad to say, only with 2 students, but I was still hoping that the discussion would take off, and for the most part it did. But I also had one student that was just, more dominating, more comfortable speaking, and all of those kinds of characteristics. And the other one was willing to talk, but just was not as responsive. And so the other student kept, well, tell me why you feel that way. And, just kept trying to probe, and did an excellent job trying to keep the conversation alive. But my numbers were just, sad to say, they were just really, really against me. And so I would welcome any advice in regards to a very, very small number when you're trying to, because of course you can still have a decent conversation with just 2 people, but it just, the personalities were quite opposite.
So can you remind me, are you at scale?
Correct.
Okay, yeah. That is going to add another layer of struggle for you with such a transitional population. So I would encourage you to try as much as possible to complete this within a block. So that might mean that you have shorter readings that they can complete that block, and then the discussion is within that same block. I know it might seem a little tight at first, but I feel like in order for that conversation to be purposeful, you might want to consider managing it within one block so that attendance is not the issue.
Yeah, and I definitely did that, but we just it was attendance in the transition. Also, I'm thinking I did question my topic a little bit, but I thought with the being in this era of social media that they were they appreciated the text and they did enjoy it, and I even gave them a lot of I created a chart for them that showed the pros and cons regarding Facebook, had that all in their packet, and had their text and had the graphic organizer. They did struggle with coming up with those kinds of open-ended questions that also can impact discussion. They did struggle with creating those, and so I had to. I thought of improvising a little bit and kind of giving a little bit more of a Padea type of tone and prompting and throwing in questions from that angle, but I had that all set to do, but I did not do it. I really wanted to see what they were going to do.
Yeah, there's always next time. Anybody else want to share some challenges so that the group can help troubleshoot?
So I have a class of all 4 levels with speech and debate, and I find that maturity gets in the way a lot. Having seniors and freshmen alongside each other talking about topical issues, and so I'm wondering, how can I minimize that maturity level besides just putting the freshmen together, the sophomores together, the juniors and the seniors, and still allow them freedom of having different points of view, not just their friends.
That is a struggle. I think I don't know what your topics were that you selected. What lended themselves? What maybe did your topics at all lend themselves to that, or is it just the nature of some of those students?
Just the nature of some of the students, because the topics were religion in schools and the trigger warnings. And then I always give them a choice of like 3 or 2 topics, and then the articles come from those 2 topics. So it wasn't necessarily an issue of the topic being issue, but then the way that kids view them. They would, if one was trying to question and probe a little bit more, like a freshman might take that defensively and kind of bottle up or be reactionary. So there was a lot of kind of just not understanding what pushing meant in more of a critical thinking lens versus a, you're wrong kind of mentality.
Right. And I think we kind of have to accept that this is something that is a developing skill.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still value in the practice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that doesn't always make it easier to deal with some of that immature behavior, but that skill development is worthwhile. So, I mean, more and more practice, I would hope, would kind of tear away at that immaturity as you move forward. Anybody else want to share a challenge?
Hello.
Yes.
One of the challenges that I have is the viewpoints of the kids in my classes, the students in my class, tend to lean heavily liberal. So when we have whole class discussions, it's easy for me to bring up another side that they hadn't thought of before. But with them working in small groups, they would kind of come to a consensus early. Some groups kind of stretched it. I did the 2 types of government, and some groups stretched it to look at limits on Congress, term limits, and things of that nature. But a lot of the groups were just, it kind of fizzled because they just all, yeah, we agree. So there's nothing left for us to say.
So I'm going to share for someone. I actually was able to attend a civil conversation yesterday with Miss Melissa Smoke, and she had made an adjustment to the guide that I think might help with this, Letitia. She changed it and she asked, what can I agree with and what can I disagree with? And so maybe if in your class, since it seems like the majority of the class kind of has the same views on things, you can really work with them on that disagree column or the agree column, depending on the topic. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. And some of them were able to bring it in, particularly looking at tie religion and with government. So there were a couple of groups who did a good job with it.
Yeah.
It is just a battle sometimes in that class as a whole to bring out another viewpoint when they're working in small groups versus the whole class discussion.
That is such an interesting dilemma, Letitia, because, you know, I feel like in most schools, teachers are seeing such differing viewpoints butt heads. But your problem is, it sounds like they all kind of are on the same page together.
Right. So I have to play devil's advocate a lot of the time.
Yeah. What an interesting dilemma to be in. Yeah. Yeah. I can see how that does lend itself to kind of flatter conversations.
I wonder if like reading the articles beforehand and like maybe making commentary cards, like statements that someone from a different viewpoint would say about the article, and when kids get to that point of where they're like, oh, we all agree, give them a commentary card that has a different viewpoint from someone who may be libertarian or a different political ideology, since you were talking about the party systems. And maybe that would cause another spark in conversation to go a little deeper.
One thing I tell my students to do if the conversation starts fizzling as well is to, if they do come to a consensus, to argue the other side. That way they're really having to consider what is this other viewpoint and what evidence can I find that supports that, because we use that when we get to debate units anyway. I never give them what they actually believe.
And when I try to be proactive and anticipate a move like that, that's when I had the pros and cons sheet already available for them, and I tried to, because I experienced a little bit of that also, and I tried to get them to, well, look at all these cons here, speak to these folks as if they were, here in the room and that kind of thing, and to try to keep the conversation going that way. What would you say to all these people, based on this whole entire list of cons here? So that's the way I try to anticipate such a thing happening.
All right, guys, are there any other questions or anything in particular that you guys might need help with? Lindsay and Laura and I are trying to address your posts within Canvas as they're coming up so that you can get that individual feedback. But if you have anything that would be good for the whole group, then please share now. Again, it's anything in particular you might need help with, or any lingering questions that you might have. I feel like I'm reading the chat area that finding text continues to be where the most work is being spent around this protocol. And there are so many good websites out there for that, but it would just be so nice if they just were kind of packaged right for us to use. So we hear you on that, and really encourage you guys within Canvas as much as possible to provide the materials that you used. There is a place within the discussion area for you to attach things. So please share those with your cohort members so that they don't have to reinvent the wheel along the way in terms of text selection. Okay, so let's chat about our next steps as we look towards second semester and the next teaching cycle. Please make sure that if you haven't already, that you do implement a civil conversation in your class by January the 12th. After January 12th, especially block schools, you're kind of out of time with your first semester students, and you'll need to focus on role play and simulation in terms of implementing something new with those students next semester. So January the 12th, please mark that if you haven't already implemented a civil conversation. Then our next face-to-face sessions are scheduled for February the 6th for our middle school folks, and that is at Washington Street. And then our high school folks will meet on February the 20th at Southeast High School. And I know that there was a little confusion surrounding the change in location for our high school folks in September. We're keeping it at Southeast just because we have over 40 of you guys in the cohort, and there's just not a room big enough at Washington Street to accommodate us. So please note that if you're in the high school cohort, we are meeting at Southeast High School. I am super stoked about our time together with role play and simulations because the role play that you will experience is centered around the Fourth Amendment and a reasonable expectation of privacy. And we're going to simulate a Supreme Court case around the reasonable expectation of privacy. And I'm super stoked about that and geeking out about it because the Supreme Court is actually hearing a case right now that involves whether or not the police need to obtain a warrant to get someone's cell phone records for like location, knowing their location and things like that, because right now they don't. They don't have to have a warrant for those things. And that falls in line in 2017 with what we're going to be talking about with the reasonable expectation of privacy as it was in the 1970s. So really great and relevant topic right now, especially because I was even reading an article about Alexa being used kind of as a digital witness to a crime that was committed, and Fitbits and all this. So I think our students are really going to enjoy this kind of topic if you choose to use these same materials with your students. Directly behind your face-to-face, you will implement a role play in your classroom with your students. And throughout March and May, you can reflect on Canvas on that experience. And then in May, we'll have a webinar to close out role plays and simulation. And then your stipend will come in May. So that's pretty exciting stuff. So if there are no other questions, please feel free to enjoy the rest of your night. Shoot me an email if you do have very specific questions about Canvas. Can no one hear me?
We lost
Yes,
you
I
in
heard you.
a second, Jamie.
Oh, okay. Well, in case someone missed something important, please take a note at the slides, or the slide right now that is showing the upcoming dates and how second semester will pan out for everyone. And again, if you don't have any questions, feel free to enjoy your night, and we will see everyone in February.